All right. So yes, I am Kayla Underkoffler, lead security engineer in the CTO office with Zenity. And I'm super excited to be here today. If those of you who've chatted with me for maybe more than 30 minutes know how much I love this conference. And I'm super excited to be on stage here presenting today. So these are all other things about me. And I'm not going to talk about them because we have an agenda to get to today. So today we're going to cover our new hope of citizen development and how we can build secure applications through citizen development. But I would be remiss if I didn't start that journey off by talking a little bit about shift left and some of the challenges we've experienced with shift left, and then how we can apply those to our new hope of citizen development. We got to talk about what security risks are introduced through citizen development, and then how we're actually going to reduce risk in these environments. So that's the journey we're going to go on today. So I think that shift left is one of those love to hate, hate to love topics that I still see, comments and opinions floating around all the time. For the purposes of this presentation, my definition here of shift left is identifying vulnerabilities as early as possible, or earlier at least, in the software development lifecycle to reduce the amount of vulnerabilities that we have in production. That's the goal. That's what we want to see with shift left. There's been two main kind of strategies for how we've tried to accomplish this. One has been taking security and picking them up and plopping them in the software development lifecycle. The other has been taking security responsibilities, taking those and assigning them to engineers and software developers. Neither of these have necessarily turned out as we would like them to, as we know, because we're all here at VulnCon. So two main themes why. There's a million reasons why, but I just want to touch on two of them. There's a mismatch of expectations. Throughout this whole journey, we've not been able to bring together the engineers, the software developers, the application owners, and security, and really tied that expectation setting to say, we're going to tie some security results, like secure code at the end of this, as a part of how you're measured when you build software in the first place. We've not really been able to achieve that goal. Additionally, we are our own worst enemies very often in security. We have 100 million vulnerabilities out there. Like, maybe we didn't introduce them, but they end up on our plate. We are overwhelmed by them. The software engineers and developers are also overwhelmed by them. And then you take into account that from their perspective, there's 99 million false positives. So 100 million vulnerabilities, and they certainly hope that 99 million of them are false positives, because it's a little easier to chuck that over the fence back to security and say, you deal with it. And then we make it worse because there's 100 million vulnerabilities, 99 million false positives, and 5 security team members. And we have inserted ourselves as a blocker to shipping code into production. And that is what those teams are measured on: better code faster. And we have inserted ourselves as a blocker, and there's only 5 of us. So there's a lot of other reasons, like I said, as to why this hasn't panned out exactly as we would have hoped. But I am not here to fix shift left today from the professional developer's perspective. Instead, I want to talk about our new hope. Our new hope with a new audience, a new technology, but the same goals. We have the same goals of creating more secure applications in the production lifecycle. So that new hope is citizen development. It's a Microsoft coined term. This is the tech target definition. The key things to bring out here are these. It's a business process, and we're encouraging non-IT trained employees to become software developers. And we're doing this through low-code, no-code technology, building blocks, Legos, if you will, right, that allow us to build production-level applications. You can see maybe a couple logos that you might be familiar with, maybe might be in your organization, maybe not. These are enterprise-level platforms, right, that are embedded within every organization in one way, shape, or form. And it's these platforms that are enabling citizen development to take place. So who are these builders? Well, citizen developers are business users. And while, there's the joke about this part, these people are absolutely professionals in what they do. They are professionals in finance and experts in finance, experts in human resources, experts in marketing. They are not IT. They are not professional software developers. They are most certainly not security. So what are these citizen developers building? Well, first off, they're building a lot. So we have Zenity has a 2024 Enterprise State of Low Code, No Code report that we published. And on average, with the environments that we were working with, there was over 79,000 applications being built by business users in these environments. So what do we mean by an application in this case? They can be complex automations and workflows. They can be simple ones. They can be fully functioning customer-facing applications, external-facing applications. Now, today, they can be AI agents, right? The bleeding edge of technology that we're all still trying to figure out from a security perspective and a use case perspective. It's super easy to build AI agents in these platforms. And we have citizen developers who are able to unleash this technology with very little guardrails. So what do all these things have in common? Critical data. We're talking about business innovation platforms. Business data is inherent to what they do. It's native. And so now we have these applications being built in platforms that inherently interact with critical data. And we have the attack surface of 79,000 applications roaming around there. When you take all of that into combination, the size of the environments, the builders, the criticality of the target, which is your critical business data, we have to ask ourselves, like, what could possibly go wrong? And I think we all have some idea. I want to start off first with acknowledging that this flywheel might look kind of familiar, software development lifecycle, but it's different if you pay attention because it's the business that owns everything. This is the citizen development software development lifecycle. I put that in air quotes because first off, the business owns every aspect of this. And secondarily, they basically envision and create. So they're like, this is what I want to build and I'm going to build it. And then I think I want to build this other thing and I'm going to build it. And there's not even really much iteration, right, on the applications and the workflows, just build another one. So there is no proper software development lifecycle, and especially IT is not involved, security is not involved. All of those traditional stakeholders are not a part of this process. So what risks are introduced through that? So we typically split these risks up into two categories, especially because now we're talking about AI agents. So you'll see the runtime risk. There's a lot of agentic focus in there, AI focus in there. But build time is really where the story starts. So these are the choices that are being made when you put together the Legos to make this application. It's the actual like radio dials. That's how we're building these applications. And again, from that 2024 report, the top 3 risks identified in these environments were authorization misuse, authentication failures, and data and secrets handling. So I think we're all probably pretty familiar with those as risks from the traditional application security, vulnerability management space. Looks a little bit different. We're going to talk about some examples. And then on the runtime side, of course, this is the actual act of the agent doing what it does in these business innovation environments. So we see risks like prompt injection that can be both direct and indirect, depending on the attack. You have curious AI, which is hallucinations or it lying to you really well. Sensitive data exfiltration, jailbreaking, all these things happen in runtime. But what I love about runtime is that the choices that you make when you build the thing increase or decrease the attack surface of your runtime risk. Because you can make choices that make this thing more secure or less. And all of that goes into then when it actually takes place and it's starting to do its job. So let's look at a couple of these real quick. We're not going to spend too much time on them. First one, authorization misuse. So this is just a little graph that, like, we're talking about this credit approval agent is our main character here. And you can see that there's data that's connected, there's actions in place, you can see who built it. And the real issue here is within this agent action. So when Chris built this agent, when he was building the action attached to it that actually lets it be an agent, right? There's a choice that you can make. And Chris made the choice to say, anytime this action is used, it will use my credentials. It will be Chris. Chris is interacting with Salesforce. So that's fine and dandy if Chris is the only person using this agent. But the moment that that agent gets shared beyond Chris, now everybody who is using Chris's agent is acting as Chris to do all of this activity. That's an authorization misuse, happens all the time. Next one is authentication failures. So again, now another graph, we're looking at our HackerBot v2, super not suspicious name at all. I wouldn't be concerned if I saw that. You can see the story again, and we can see we're connected to maybe some critical looking data. I mean, typically internal SharePoints have critical business data. And the real issue here is that this is publicly available. And it is ridiculously easy to create an agent that is unauthenticated, meaning anybody who has the link to interact with that agent can. Public, unauthenticated, public, internal, external, all that jazz. So it really depends on your priorities. Like if this is an environment where that's okay, all right, that's a conversation. If this is an environment where that is absolutely not okay, and this data is business critical data, like that's a risk. It needs to be addressed. So then we talk about data and secrets handling. This is a very familiar one as well for all of us. This is just a simple flow. And again, Chris is our builder. Chris maybe needs a little more education on how we build securely. This flow was built using a hard-coded plain text secret. So it's something we're all very familiar with. And what I love about this is, like, we still have a hard time convincing like professional developers that they shouldn't do this. And then now we're talking to Chris, who maybe is in finance or human resources. And now we have to explain to Chris why this is a problem. So it just brings that audience back into perspective. So this last one here, this is our runtime risk. Again, we're talking about an agent. This is an email customer support agent. The cool thing about this one is that this is an autonomous agent, and you can see that because this bottom connector is a trigger. So this agent is going to be triggered to take action autonomously based off the flow that's been created back there, which is where our problem really arises. So this is a runtime risk because this is something that's going to happen when the agent is triggered. The issue with the flow is that the choice that was made when we built it was do not filter the from field when you're sending emails or interacting with emails. So needless to say, the choice that was made at that build time point now has increased the attack surface of this agent in runtime. So it just is a great example of how those two components really mesh together. So life is full of risks. Like, that's why we're all here. This is VulnCon. But in this environment, in these ecosystems, risk can be reduced. They're different. We're talking about business innovation platforms. We're talking about a contained environment. You can reduce risk holistically here. So that's what we're going to talk about next. So how are we going to do that? These also probably look ridiculously familiar to everybody here. We're going to talk about visibility and risk assessment. And we're going to talk about remediation and prevention. Like, these are things we've been talking about the past 3 days. But again, they're going to look different because we're talking about citizen development environments. So first off, visibility. I was super tempted to use that like Lion King meme of like everything that the sunlight touches and all the rest is shadow, because like these environments are basically pure shadow land. So everything is shadow agents, shadow workflows, shadow environments, because we're not tied into them. And you make that worse. You compound that by saying that on average, we're seeing 39.1% year over year growth in these environments. And that was from 2024 again. So now with the rise of agents, it's just that much more scary. If you don't have visibility, like that's a huge problem to start with. So how can we actually gain visibility? Again, these are contained, flat environments, and we need to lean on the platforms. So this is a business innovation platform. It's an enterprise platform. Lean in on the platform's capabilities to be able to inventory who is building what and where. That's one step. Then there are third-party tools out there that can also help you maintain your inventory. There's a whole ecosystem around this now, built around these platforms. Also, a critical part here is making sure you understand your data. What's your most important data in these environments? And start there. Is it finance? Is it research and development? What environments is that data in? Start to build your inventory from there out. And the other thing I think is really cool here is that because we're just now starting to get into this space and really build security strategy, let's set the precedent from the very beginning that inventory is a must. If you build it, you will document it. In these environments, this is what we care about. Set that precedent when you start this journey versus having to retroactively beg people to actually fill out inventory. So for risk assessment, this one is it's a little more challenging in these environments because there isn't the established tool set like we have in the traditional vulnerability management space. So one of my recommendations here is, again, going back to that inventory, you've hopefully established what is most critical for you, what data is most critical for you. You've understood who is building what. It's the how part. How are they building it? That's where you start to be able to build your risk profile, what choices were made when these things were built. And then, of course, while there's limited tools, there are tools out there because of the scale of these environments. You do want to lean in on automation. Like automated scanning is a key. I don't even think manual pen testing is super built out in these environments yet. So the ecosystem is small but strong for third-party components. Okay, we get to the fun part here. What I love about remediation in these environments is that it's totally possible. This is a different setting than our traditional applications that we build. So the idea of silent remediation is feasible. You can identify sensitive data being sent into logs, just remove it, stop it. You can do that because these applications often are not going to be running the front lines. Yes, they're customer facing. Yes, they can be public, but they're not always the same as what we're dealing with professional developers, right? So you can remove sensitive data. You can change the authentication settings. If in this environment, you are not allowed to have an unauthenticated agent, change it. You can do that. Same with access settings. If guests are not allowed in an environment, you can set that at the environmental level. Again, lean on the platform capabilities to set those guardrails and remediate from there. Obviously, not everything can always be done in an automated fashion. Well, we wish it could. So manual campaigns will still be there. You can see the types of situations that come up there. It's the same that we experience in traditional vulnerability management, like where the maker is required to make a change on their own. So this is all great to actually reduce risk, but then how do we prevent that? And this is really important because just because we've knocked down risk, we need to continue that journey. We don't want to have to knock down risk and then wait to do another campaign later. We want to prevent it from being introduced in the first place. So again, lean in on the platforms where there are guardrails at an environmental level. Set those guardrails first. Start at the top. That way, you're not leaving up the decision up to a maker, whether or not they're going to make the right choice. You make the choice for them at the environmental level. And then from there, like I said, automate, lean in on automation. These platforms were built for automation. That's the point. So use the platform to automate your guardrails, your remediation, your prevention strategies. And then education and creating a good culture of security, those really go hand in hand. if you do make the choice to do a silent remediation, you should probably still reach out to the maker in some way, shape, or form and say, P.S. We changed the authentication on your agent because you're not allowed to have a publicly available agent. This is how you would have done this on your own. We did it for you. And then set the standard from the top down, saying, in this environment, we care about security. In this environment, you will follow the standards that we have set. That's like the soft skill side of this. But if you set that precedent and then back it up with technical guardrails, which you can do in these environments, it makes your strategy that much stronger. So here for this one, it's kind of it's a little bit of what I've already talked about. Like the policy is super important. This is going back to what we've messed up with shift left, right? We need to actually collaborate with the business here because these are business users, these are business platforms. It gives us the opportunity as security to go interact with an audience we don't normally work with, or at least maybe the relationship is adversarial most of the time, and not start over, but take a fresh approach and collectively say, this is what we believe for security in this environment. So it's a little bit of the people side for that one. And then when you are working with makers, make sure you meet them where they are. It's a special call out, like they're probably not in Jira and they're probably not in ServiceNow. So you might have to do an email campaign, but make sure you automate that. Like, don't be sending manual emails out. The scope is too big. But you do have to meet them where they are and speak in a language they understand, which normally means speak in the language of the platform. So if this is the fix, literally take the screenshots of the fix, because then they can do it easily as a maker. So this is possible to do. This is a great talk. I recommend everybody take a picture of this and look it up. It's a Blue Hat talk. It's with the Microsoft team and Zenity, and talking about Microsoft's journey to securing their own environment. And they go into some fantastic detail about shared responsibility model and how they actually implemented some of these silent remediation campaigns using the platform. It's very, very educational. And it also shows that it's possible because they had a team of under 5 people. And within 4 months, they reduced the risk by 90%. And so it's definitely possible. So to wrap this up here, what's next for all of you? I recommend that you go back to your organization and you take a look at these environments and you assess, do you have visibility? Do you have a risk assessment present? Do you have a remediation strategy? Is prevention included in that? And if you take a look and things aren't as pearly white as you might have thought they were, just know that it's absolutely possible to reduce risk in these environments and to help citizen developers create more secure applications at the end. So there's always hope in these spaces. So that's what I have for you today. And I think I have time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. Anyone in the room have a question? I think we have time for one. And then Kayla, I will let you know there is one question in Discord.
Great.
We probably won't get to call out, but if you can check it.
I will. Okay.
All right, John Kavanaugh. So as a CISSP, I don't see any separation of duties in here.
Mm.
And I would say this would be in a regulated industry a problem.
Yeah.
So it's cool. And I'm glad I came and I learned a lot, but that's a fear that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I work a lot with regulation and policy and standards, and I go into these conversations and I talk about this space and nobody knows what I'm talking about. So yeah, we're working on that. We are evangelizing and we are working on how do we actually put in standards for these environments because they're not there today.
I think we're good. Thank you again, Kayla, so much.